Well, just have to say at the outset, it is incredibly painful to hear the stories of these families and what they've gone through. And I think every one of us is resolute about the changes we have to make. But these stories are, they're so gripping. It's so difficult to hear the loss that people have suffered. And if we needed any further clarity about how urgent this work is, we've just heard it now from the parents who have lost their children. And so this is going to be a central focus of our administration because the human cost is simply unacceptable. And if you talk to these parents, you'll know immediately what I mean. Let me express my appreciation to everyone who's here in Common Cause today. You'll be hearing in a moment from two commissioners who are going to be leaders in this effort to make a change in our city, and I'm so appreciative for the deep commitment that they both share on this issue. Of course, Police Commissioner Bill Bratton and our current, as of today, still current United States Department of Transportation Undersecretary Polly Trottenberg, but next week she will be New York City Department of Transportation Commissioner Polly Trottenberg. So she'll speak in her federal capacity today, and we look forward to her joining us next week. I want to thank the elected officials who are here, who I know from working with all of them, they share our commitment and our focus, starting with our new Queensboro President, Melinda Katz. Thank you. Thank you to State Senators Toby Stavisky and Mike Gianaris. And if I miss anyone, please remind me. Assemblymember Mike Dendecker, City Council members Jimmy Van Bramer, Danny Drum, and David Greenfield. Want to thank the Precinct Commander, Deputy Inspector Kevin Maloney, who's been very responsive in working with us to make sure children are safe, and who I had the honor of working with in the Rockaways after Sandy hit. And I want to thank the principal of this school, Vincent Vitolo, for his good work. Let me speak very personally to begin. I see this through the eyes of a parent. I see this as a father. The day that Shirlane and I brought Kiara home from Methodist Hospital, I've said many times that was the life-changing moment, that was the dividing line in so much of my life and Shirlane's life when our first child was born. And our understanding of everything that mattered in our life changed. And our focus from that moment on became the health and safety of our child, and then of Dante when he came along. And I think all the parents here, anyone who's listening who's a parent, understands that this is the core of our lives, making sure our children get to live, get to prosper, get to enjoy a life ahead. And no matter what else has happened to me in the last 19 years, from that moment on, I saw the world first through the eyes of a parent. I interpreted everything as a parent first from that moment on. And I know that Bill Bratton felt the same way from the moment his first child was born. I know Polly Trottenberg feels the same way as a parent. We all have that sense of our first mission, our first obligation. And so when I read about these horrible moments, when I read about these tragedies and this loss of life, it's very personal for me because I can see it through the eyes of my fellow parents. And of course, every one of us thinks, what if that was my child? And that is, in fact, how we have to make public policy and how we have to implement public policy, with the notion in mind, what if it was my child? The families joining us today have turned their grief into action. They have spoken out. They need to know that their city hears them. They need to know we will act, and we're here to tell them that we stand with them, and we're starting immediately to make changes to protect our children and to protect all New Yorkers. And we're dedicating ourselves to not just learning from each of these tragedies, but using them as the basis for action that will save lives. That will mean that others will be spared the horrible pain that they are suffering. I know it was not easy for the parents of Noshat Nahayan to be here today. I could tell in the conversation I had with them that every moment they spent in this space has been painful and difficult for them, every moment recounting what happened and what their son hoped for in this country and what is now lost. I could tell it was deeply painful, but I also admired that they wanted to tell their story. They wanted their son's memory to continue, and they wanted us to learn and act. So I want to thank Muhammad Asma Mia and Nargish Begum for their courage and their strength, and again extend the deepest condolences of the people of New York City to them. Commissioner Bratton and Deputy Secretary Trottenberg and I stood a few moments ago at Noshat's memorial, and you could feel there how great the sense of loss was. You could feel how different things could have been, and you could see exactly where his life was lost and that it didn't have to be that way. Unfortunately, as some of the families who are here today emphasized to me, this is a crisis that's happening each and every day in our city. And so far this year, we've lost 11 New Yorkers on our streets. 7 of them were pedestrians. Now, I remind everyone of something we can't say enough. The first obligation of government is to protect the health and safety of our people. And this is an area in which we simply have to do better. I said on Inauguration Day that we were here to make changes, and we meant it. And this is an example where we will act immediately. And I want to emphasize that we are making this statement just 2 weeks into this administration because we think there is an epidemic here. There's been an epidemic of traffic fatalities, and it can't go on, and the time to start change is now. Let me define just clearly what we're facing. According to the City Department of Health, being struck by a vehicle is the leading cause of injury-related death for kids younger than 14 in this city. It's the second leading cause of injury-related death for our seniors. In the past decade, 1,766 pedestrians were struck and killed on our streets. Almost 2,000 people lost in the last 10 years on our streets, and 30,000 were hospitalized as a result of these crashes. Let me put this in perspective, and I think this is one of the most sobering statistics you're ever going to hear. We are so proud of the progress we've made in fighting crime in the city. We're so appreciative to the men and women of the NYPD. And last year we had 333 homicides in New York City, which was a record low. 333 homicides, and yet we had 286 traffic fatalities. And that data is not 100% complete since the year just ended. It is shocking to see how those two numbers correspond, and it makes clear how much more focus and energy we have to put on the issue of traffic fatalities. It's a public safety problem. It's a public health problem. It affects children. It affects seniors. It affects all elements of what we in government do on behalf of communities. But unfortunately, oftentimes here, and I think it's true in many other parts of the country, the silos in government, the separation between agencies did not lead to the kind of focus, the kind of coordinated effort to take on this growing challenge. And we didn't use all the tools we had to protect our people the way we might have. And that includes enforcement, that includes education, that includes the design of our streets. There's more we can do on each and every one of these fronts, and the time to do that is now. So today I'm announcing immediate formation of an interagency working group to implement Vision Zero. We've talked about Vision Zero. We've seen it succeed in other countries. It is time to implement it here and now in New York City. So we're calling together the New York City Police Department, Department of Transportation, the Health Department, and the Taxi and Limousine Commission to make common cause to implement this plan. The message will be clear from the top of our city government, from the top of each agency, that all agencies are expected to participate, that every individual works for these agencies. The four I've named in particular needs to be focused on this goal. The goal is literally to reduce fatalities on our roadways to zero. That is our singular focus, and to save every life we can. The notion of Vision Zero, and again, this is an idea that's spread because it worked. There's ample evidence, particularly in Europe, of the effectiveness of this approach. And the core concept is it treats every death as preventable and looks at the root causes and looks at the fact that there are ways to change people's habits, and there's ways for government to act to protect people that we haven't done enough of, but that can work when applied in a really comprehensive and focused fashion. We've seen a similar mindset achieve great things, for example, when it comes to child welfare and our child protective efforts. And we have to apply the same thinking consistently to street safety. The working group, comprised of leaders of each of these four agencies, will report to me by February 15th with very specific and concrete plans that will include dedicating sufficient NYPD resources and personnel to deter the most dangerous behavior, particularly the behavior of speeding and failing to yield to pedestrians. Be a plan to immediately improve at least 50 dangerous corridors and intersections. We intend to make that the goal for each year, to improve 50 more. To begin the process immediately of reducing the speed limit in a number of streets, on a number of streets in our city. There's a number of streets that really should have a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit. We're going to delineate the plan to get that done. And to develop a legislative agenda for traffic safety, including tougher laws that ensure that people who take a life because of negligence or because they are breaking a law are held accountable. We're not going to accept the notion that the different agencies are off on their own separate missions when it comes to this. We're going to demand that this be a common effort and that all hands are on deck. Again, the report will be due on February 15th. It will be a matter of public record. It will be a measure that keeps us accountable, and it will be a roadmap for our efforts ahead. And we've made clear to the agencies involved that we expect them to start right away to prepare for these next steps. Our agencies have identified immediate steps that will take to address some of the horrible crashes that have just happened in the last few weeks. I want to personally thank Commissioner Bratton for his focus on this issue and for ensuring that the precinct dispatched a police officer to man this post at the site that this tragedy occurred so children can cross Northern Boulevard safely. That officer, there will be an officer posted at that site every day during the hours in which kids come to school and go home from school until such time as a school crossing guard takes over that responsibility. Beginning tomorrow, speed enforcement cameras that are being installed finally after years of this city asking of Albany the right simply to protect our own people, and we finally begun the process, a nascent process of putting speed cameras in place. In the last few months, these cameras have issued warnings. Starting tomorrow, they will begin issuing tickets to enforce the speed limit in some of our most dangerous streets. So starting tomorrow, where the new speed cameras have been installed, there will be tickets and there will be consequences for speeding. And I said we fought long and hard to begin to put in the speed cameras we need. We need many more. As part of our legislative efforts in Albany, we're going to fight for the home rule right to install speed cameras and red light cameras wherever data shows that they will make our streets safer. Look, this is a right this city needs to have. We have to protect our people. We need to be able to do that quickly and in a focused manner. We should not have to constantly go to Albany and have our efforts limited when we're trying to protect our own people. We're going to increase NYPD staffing levels. The commissioner will go into greater detail, but we're going to have an increase of 60 officers focused on efforts related to traffic safety. I want the families who are here today to know that we hear what they're saying, that we are not going to let them down. Their cry for help, their cry for focus of all of us on saving lives couldn't be clearer. They are right to hold us accountable. They're right to demand more. Again, I feel so much for them, and I also have so much admiration that they are trying with all their might to protect others. They, in each and every case, have lost someone, and yet they are trying with all their might to make sure that we as a city lose no more people. And that is entirely noble. And they, to me, are moral arbiters in this fight, and we want to show them the kind of focus and commitment that they deserve. Just a very brief comment in Spanish before I call upon Commissioner Bratton and Deputy Secretary Trottenberg. Nada es más importante en la labor que realizamos en el gobierno que proteger la salud y la seguridad de nuestra gente. El día que llegamos a City Hall, prometí a los neoyorquinos que no íbamos a esperar para hacer cambios. Lo dije en serio. Estoy llamando a las agencias de la ciudad para que trabajen juntas a fin de acabar con las muertes de tránsito en nuestras calles. Let me call forward Commissioner Bratton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and certainly to the families that are gathered here today. Let me extend my own sympathies to you for your loss and reinforce the Mayor's words, our commitment to try to the best of our abilities, to prevent more of these incidents from occurring. In my public comments since returning as Police Commissioner, I have said that the intensive focus on traffic issues is an area that the Mayor has asked us to prioritize, and that is exactly what we have been doing, and we will participate very actively in the expanded effort that will occur over the next month. Today I'd like to share with you some of the steps that we've been taking and that we'll be continuing to improve upon as we move toward the Mayor's goal at the end of a month to have an expanded plan to address these issues. As you may be aware, the Department recently implemented a new policy to expand the number and type of collisions investigated. Many serious accident investigations involving serious injuries were not adequately investigated. As a result, there's been a major effort to try to improve the amount of resources that we can commit to ensure that all serious accidents involving serious injuries and fatalities are in fact investigated. Previously, the Department only investigated collisions in which victims were likely to die. That threshold has been expanded to include critically injured as a category, increasing the number of cases we are investigating by approximately 20%. What that means is that in a serious accident, we will get there to gather the evidence as quickly as possible so that we don't lose that evidence. In the past, on some occasions, where the individual was not thought likely to pass, when they subsequently passed, we had lost the ability to basically accumulate the evidence to allow us to move forward with an investigation. I intend to ensure that the new policy is adhered to strictly. We have also increased the size and are in the process of increasing the size of our highway investigation unit. We are expanding from 180 to 270 personnel in that unit. We are currently at 210. We're in the process of recruiting and training 60 additional personnel. We are, as part of that expansion, increasing the number of investigators. These are the trained individuals that can go to these serious collision incidents. We are expanding that to 6 supervisors and 27 highly trained investigators. We're also in the process of creating and staffing and training a collision investigation squad. This is a highly trained group that will be able to go to the scene of investigation and use all the modern tools available to conduct thorough investigations. They receive the same homicide investigation courses the detectives assigned to investigate murders do. We're also sending them to a premier course developed by Northwestern University, which literally wrote the book on scientific crash investigations. Police agencies around the country send their personnel to this school, and we are now sending our personnel there also. In addition, we've created the Corps of personnel to serve as drug recognition experts to assist on those accidents where we believe that drugs may be involved. We have 5 officers in total working in that group. They are trained to recognize indicators in those drivers who may be operating a vehicle under the influence of specific types of drugs. We've also acquired new technology and equipment to aid us in accident investigations. With these tools, we can generate detailed maps of collision sites, measure roadway friction and braking capacity, and interface with the collision data recorders that have become standard in many late model cars, the so-called black boxes. These boxes are activated when an airbag goes off and in some cases record speed, whether or not the seatbelt was in use when the accident took place, and other data depending on the manufacturer of the vehicle. I should note that criminality must be suspected and a warrant is required to retrieve this information, but this will be a significant improvement in our ability to investigate these cases and, where appropriate, take them to district attorneys for appropriate prosecution. We're also deploying more handheld rugby devices that will allow our collision investigators to conduct comprehensive computer checks from the field. And those would basically move into our real-time crime center. In addition, all collision investigations are now being stored in the department's electronic case management system that will help us for our analysis, for retrieval, for court purposes, and prosecution purposes. This is a standardized tool to better track the progress of a case and provide detailed management oversight. At the precinct level, we've trained more officers on laser speed measurement, LIDAR devices in an effort to replace older technology. While all precincts are using some form of speed enforcement devices, we've upgraded 24 of them with these laser devices, and we'll seek to move forward eventually to having all precincts equipped with laser speed detection devices. In 2013, the department issued more than 83,000 summonses for speeding, a 16% increase from the prior year. We expect this year to increase it even further and hope to be significantly assisted by the speed cameras that the mayor is prioritizing and is committed to acquiring. We are employing our traffic stat model to reduce accidents, similar to what we do in CompStat to reduce crime. And precincts are also being required to submit plans for pedestrian safety and discuss initiatives to increase pedestrian awareness and collision prevention. These will be incorporated into the initiative that the mayor just announced that will be going forward over the next 30 days. I should point out that pedestrian accidents have accounted for the greatest increase in collision fatalities of late, as the mayor reported. There were 23 more pedestrians killed last year compared to 2012. Last year, pedestrian error, and I would point this out, pedestrian error contributed to 73% of collisions, and 66% are directly related to the actions of pedestrians. So while a lot of our focus is on drivers and speed, we also need to work more comprehensively on pedestrian education so that the combination will, in fact, reduce us and move us toward the mayor's goal. On the enforcement side, we've also identified 7 hazardous violations that contribute to collisions, and we are encouraging stricter enforcement of each by the department's members. They include disobeying a sign or traffic signal, improper turns, failure to yield to pedestrians, which certainly contributed to some of the accidents that have been referenced here this morning, use of a cell phone or texting while driving and speeding. This is an effort that the mayor has prioritized, and rightfully so. It's an effort that the police department is committed to. A life lost is a life lost, whether by murder or by traffic accident. And the department is committed to every way, shape, and form reducing the loss of life in this system. So I applaud the mayor's efforts and ensure him and ensure you, the media and the public, that we will work hand in hand with him and the city administration to reduce these accidents to the greatest degree possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Deputy Secretary Trottenberg.
Thank you. I, too, want to extend my sympathies and condolences to all the New Yorkers who've lost loved ones in these terrible accidents. Some of them are here with us today, and they're really an inspiration for us in the work we're doing, and we look forward to working with them in a close partnership. As the mentioned mayor, I just want to be clear, I'm here today actually in my role at the United States Department of Transportation, soon making the transition to New York City DOT. But today's subject, saving lives on our streets, it's a top priority for U.S. DOT, and obviously it's going to be a top priority here for the mayor and New York City DOT. And I want to thank the mayor for his leadership on this issue. It's a particular honor for me to join an administration that has made transportation safety and Vision Zero such a top priority. And I'm honored as well to be working with Commissioner Bratton. He has done so much to reduce crime and make cities safer, working closely with local communities. His commitment to strengthening and prioritizing enforcement and accident investigation, working against unsafe driving, that sends an incredibly powerful message. I've made transportation safety a passion of my career. I've seen the tragic headlines locally and nationally, and know these stories are more than just statistics. They're heartbreaking reminders of the importance of doing all we can to make our streets safer. From the federal perspective, safety has always been the top issue for United States Department of Transportation, from reducing drunk and distracted driving to better roadway design, to focusing most crucially on the most vulnerable street users, children and seniors and cyclists. And now I'm looking forward to being on the front lines of making our streets safer. As the mayor said, in the transportation safety field, we emphasize what's called the 3 E's: enforcement, engineering, and education. At the federal level, we work with communities like New York to try and incentivize the tackling of the 3 E's. And now, with the mayor's announcement, it's clear we're going to do that here in New York City. In conclusion, I'm ending my tenure at U.S. DOT shortly and will be joining New York City DOT. But I know that U.S. DOT will also continue to be a partner in making the streets safer and in saving lives. Thank you, Mayor de Blasio and Commissioner Bratton, and all the elected officials and community leaders and family leaders who are joining us. I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Or Deputy Secretary today. Next week I'll call you Commissioner. I just want to say it was very gratifying to see the initial discussion that Commissioner Bratton and Deputy Secretary Trottenberg had, because there was an instant synergy, an instant sense of this being a common goal, common mission. I mentioned to Commissioner Bratton I was very impressed by the speech he gave, I guess it was a couple of months ago, at NYU on traffic safety and on the role the NYPD needs to play, and a real reinterpretation of the role police have to play going forward to keep us safe in every single way. So I deeply appreciate his vision and commitment. Deputy Secretary Trottenberg, I can tell from our many conversations, it feels this urgently, has thought about this not just in local context but in national context, understands developments all over the globe and new efforts that have worked. Their teamwork is going to save many lives in this city, and it's real and it's organic and very, very gratifying. So I want to thank them both for the mindset they bring, the focus they bring, and I think it's going to have a very big impact on this town very quickly. With that, I'd like to welcome your questions. Yes.
How many cameras?
And let's do, I'm sorry, just one clarification. On topic first, and then we'll do any off topics. Go ahead.
How many cameras with this capability of issuing tickets do we have right now, and where are they? And also for Commissioner Bratton, how many of these officers going to the Highway Division, are they being transferred from a specific agency? Are they new hires, or where are these officers coming from?
I'll start by saying, with absolute respect, we don't make it a practice to tell people where the cameras are, because the point is we're trying to get people out of the habit of speeding in general. The cameras are at some of the most dangerous intersections in the city. Sadly, there are many. And again, part of why we feel so strongly about the fact that we want the right not to be held back by Albany is we have a lot of work to do. So this next set of cameras, I'm going to look to the Deputy Secretary, I think it's going to be 6 in this next set, but there are...
And then we're legally authorized to go to 20.
And we're legally authorized to go to 20, but there's so much more work to be done. But what we want from people, and I say this, from my own personal experience as a motorist as well, we want people to be careful at every intersection, not just the ones where they know there might be a camera. Let me call the Commissioner forward for his part of the question.
The approximately 270 officers that will ultimately comprise the Highway Division being recruited, the additional officers from the current ranks of the department. So that process is underway. So it's not an increase in the size of the force, but people being drawn from within the numbers that we already have.
Marcia.
Mayor, I've noticed in some suburban areas they have these slow zones around schools, 15 miles an hour with lights that warn people during school hours you have to go 15 miles an hour. I wonder if you've thought about doing that here in New York City. I realize you have a lot of schools, but also would you do it at other places deemed to be more dangerous intersections?
I'll speak sort of about the general philosophy, and then if Polly wants to add, feel free. You know, I learned a lot about this when I was a council member, and we had a lot of problems around our schools with speeding, and I think there's a number of different methodologies you can use. So I think the way I'd say it is we are very focused on securing the areas around our schools. And in some cases that is about speed limit or maybe speed cameras. Some places speed humps have been used. Enforcement, there's a lot of different pieces. Many times you use many of them in concert. But we're going to be very, very focused on improving safety around our schools. There are some other areas of concern like senior centers or areas that are frequented by seniors where there's been a number of accidents. So I think we have a particular sensitivity to the schools, but we're going to be looking for wherever there's been a pattern and figure out what combination of solutions is necessary. Would you like to add? Did I speak enough transportation speak there? Okay. Yes.
Criteria for the 50 dangerous intersection designations and the 20 mile per hour zones. What the criteria are for designating those speed limits?
Well, this I will turn to Polly. So, again, what my simple layman's answer is one of the things we look at is where the problems have been, and obviously who the constituency, the population is in that area, kids going to school being an obvious one. But in terms of a deeper explanation of criteria, take it away.
And this one I may also actually call up the Lori Ardito, who's currently the acting commissioner at New York City DOT. The city takes a very data-driven approach on deciding where to do the slow zones, and maybe, Lori, if you want to speak in a little more detail about it.
Lori Ardito.
Spell it.
Lori, and it's Ardito. Again, if we actually look right outside here, we have a 15 mile an hour speed zone around schools. So we have many of them already in place, and we're going to continue to look around schools. And obviously, if we know there's speeding, I think to the mayor's point, which is that we have a lot of tools in our toolbox, and we're going to look to all of them to try to reduce the speed limits.
Yes.
Do you believe that there are more cases where criminal charges are appropriate under current law with drivers who reckless driving leads to deaths or injuries? And in particular, there's a cab driver who at this point has been issued only a ticket in the death of a young boy. Do you think that there should be criminal charges there?
Let me first offer a caution and then offer my own personal view. The caution is I am not a law enforcement professional, nor am I a lawyer. But I do think, by definition, there are more cases that deserve those charges. I don't want to speak to any particular case, but my broad view is there are more cases that deserve those charges. And again, if either of you want to add? Okay. Thank you. Yes.
Follow up on that.
Okay. Actually, you and then you. Hold on.
Mayor, you said that the report from the working group would be a matter of public record. Will the public be allowed to attend any of the meetings of the working group? And if not, how will the public input be part of that process?
I want to differentiate the internal discussions from the final product. I think we have already a real devotion to working with families and working with advocates who have done, I think, an extraordinary job of bringing these issues to light. I know that both commissioners are devoted to that kind of dialogue, so that will certainly be a part of both the process in this next month, but more importantly going forward to make sure our implementation works. But as with everything in government, there are some internal meetings that are appropriately kept internal. The final document will be public, and it will be a set of measures that people can use to keep us accountable. And it's just going to be an ongoing effort. That we will be at this for 4 years, and with constant efforts to work with stakeholders at the community level to make it work. And again, I'm going to just do a blanket to my colleagues. If there's any time you want to jump in, tap me on the shoulder. Yes, sir.
Firstly, for Commissioner Bratton, what is the hurdle that prevents drivers who seem to have been driving either exhibiting recklessness or negligence to being charged criminally? And second of all, if a law needs to be changed, will the mayor go to Albany to look for these changes, or can those changes be implemented more easily here in the city level?
The hurdle basically is appropriate evidence that within the existing laws in terms of ensuring that, to the best of our ability, that we investigate these cases so that if there is criminality involved, that we have the ability to work with the district attorneys to move those charges forward. And so the strengthening of our investigative capabilities, the ability to have collision experts, to have drug screening experts, more of them so that we can respond to more of these incidents, I think you will see an
choice to make. We're going to argue that Albany should simply assent to the focus we have on protecting our own people. And when it's something that requires city legislation, our colleagues in the city council, who obviously the three members who are here I know are very devoted. I know many other members are devoted to making improvements. So we'll be working together on that.
I know it's something that you've personally looked at before. Are you satisfied with the teeth that the laws have right now as it pertains to criminal prosecutions of drivers who kill?
I'm going to reaffirm that I am not a lawyer nor a law enforcement professional, but no, I'm not satisfied. Yes?
I wanted to ask about your Albany agenda. Right now,
this is on this topic. Yes.
Right now, pre-K is your number one push-up there. Will you launch a similar campaign after pre-K for either traffic cameras or changes in the law at the state level on Vision Zero issues?
Well, we're going to have a comprehensive Albany agenda in many, many areas. This is obviously going to be a priority. I think nothing is quite like the pre-K issue in terms of the magnitude of what we have to do to get this change to happen. My hope is on the legislative agenda we're discussing here that it will be quickly embraced by all elements in Albany and we can act on it quickly. So I think each piece is a little different, but this will be a central part of our legislative agenda. Yes? I'll come over. I'm sorry, I've been neglecting the right side. I'll come over to you in just a second. Go ahead.
I was wondering if any family members who are here today, Shad or any other, anyone who spoke would be willing to speak about or anyone who met with you earlier.
What I'll do is this. Let me just give them a moment to think about that, and I'll take another question in the meantime. But if any of the family members wants to come forward, I want to welcome them to do so. So just after this next question, anyone who wants to step forward, please do. And yes. Louder, please. On this topic.
Hot story, the boy who passed on West Boulevard. The driver didn't have a license.
Correct.
Commercial vehicle license to do work. Is there anything the city can do to collaborate with authorities from New Jersey in these particular cases?
So I'm going to repeat it just so people hear. The question was about the fact that in this tragedy that occurred right here down the street, the driver involved was unlicensed. And the question is, and apparently a New Jersey resident, and the question is what kind of coordination can happen between states, between law enforcement agencies to follow up on that fact? And I'm going to turn to my colleagues because I do not honestly know that answer.
This case is still moving forward, that upon its final adjudication, that in terms of that information would be entered into the various records that the states share among themselves, so that whatever the final adjudication is in resolution of the charges that would be levied against the driver, that there are very comprehensive systems between the states sharing motor vehicle data as well as criminal data.
Just want to go back one step on the Albany question. Let Senator Gianaris come up and just explain one effort being made now to try and strengthen the penalties. Senator Gianaris.
Thank you. The question was well put, that the penalties and the laws currently are insufficient in terms of penalizing drivers who do this. The incident that occurred right on this corner behind us, the driver had a suspended license, and unfortunately the law only allows him to be charged with a misdemeanor. And so he's being charged with a misdemeanor for killing this child, which usually means little or no jail time. We did announce, myself, Senator Stavisky, I know Councilman Van Bramer was here at the announcement lending his support as well, an effort to change the law to make it a felony if anyone is is killed or seriously injured by someone who shouldn't be on the roads because they have a suspended or are unlicensed completely.
On the previous request, the family members who choose to speak to the media will be available after, so I think that'll be a better way to have the dialogue. And again, I just want to say to our colleagues in the media, some may be willing to speak, some may not feel comfortable, so you will use your discretion. Yes?
Do you plan on increasing the amount of crossing guards around schools? Crossing guards?
Well, we're going to look at every piece of the equation. I as a public school parent, I have immense appreciation for our crossing guards. I think they do extraordinary work, and I think often unsung work. And they're clearly one of the ways we keep our children safe. So we're going to look at that as part of the equation with all these other measures. Yes.
Question was the idea that you noted that you put in a crossing guard after this boy was killed. So what intersections have crossing guards? Does the school have a certain number and then they decide where they go? And then just following up on that, I was surprised that wasn't one of the measures listed here as a step that you were planning to take.
I don't know the exact formula currently for deployment of crossing guards. We're obviously going to look at that afresh and decide if we think there's some areas that need more. But I think the things we're talking about are foundational. They're there to make sure people are safe even when there are not personnel on the scene to help ensure their safety. So I very personally care about the issue of crossing guards and where we need them. I think we are particularly focused on the cameras and the other measures that have a 24/7 impact. Yes, sir.
I know many activist organizations and community groups are working on making sure Vision Zero is a reality. Are there any groups in particular that come to mind that are going to be helping your administration with this?
We've worked with a number of organizations, and I respect them all. I don't want to play favorites or talk about particular relationships. The point is, I think, and I know this is something that Deputy Secretary Trottenberg feels, we have a lot of respect and appreciation for what the advocacy community has achieved in terms of changing the public dialogue on these issues, and we want them very much to be at the table as we proceed. Yes. Still on. Let's make sure there's anything else on, Marcia.
Commissioner Bratton talked about the fact that pedestrians contribute, I think 63% was the number you said, of contributing to accidents. I wonder if there's going to be...
Wait, say that again. I couldn't hear it.
He talked about the fact that pedestrians also need to be educated because their actions sometimes contribute to these situations. Are you going to take any, in addition to education, will you take any action against pedestrians, jaywalking, things like that?
The initiative that the mayor is announcing today will seek to, in a comprehensive fashion, look at all of the things that are contributing to accidents and certainly fatalities. As I've mentioned, the investigations that we have conducted to date indicate that very frequently it's a pedestrian action that contributes to the ultimate incident. So in terms of London, for example, had so many incidents involving tourists, a city that has a great deal of tourism, that they basically put on the ground at every intersection, look left, because most people tend to look right at an intersection. So is there more that can be done here, both in terms of warning, education, or potentially penalty? I believe there probably is in all three categories, and that'll be certainly something that we'll take a look at during the next month.
So I want to emphasize, I think the big area for improvement there is education. I think we have to do a lot more to warn our people of the dangers, particularly the dangers to our children and our seniors. So I think our biggest focus in this plan is on the physical changes that we can make. But I think we want to also look at every way we can better educate our people to avoid these dangers. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, what about education for children? Does the initiative include in-school instruction, safety tips for children on how to cross the street?
Yeah, I don't want to get ahead of this working group, but I think that's another obvious area where we can do more. And I think it's obviously we're so particularly concerned for our kids, and we have a chance to really make vivid for them what they have to do to protect themselves and their siblings. So that's something we're going to look to do more on. Michael?
Do you plan to expand the use of pedestrian plazas, and will your administration retain the plazas that have already been installed in the city?
We're going to look at a variety of traffic calming measures in areas where there's a problem. So I think, again, I'm a layman. I would say pedestrian plazas are there for more than one reason. But when you talk about so many of the other tools we have for calming traffic, we're going to look at the whole range of them, particularly for the most dangerous intersections. On the question of the plazas unto themselves, it's what I've said previously. We're going to look at them. I think in some cases we can tweak them and make them more effective, make them work well with their surroundings. But that's a broader review that we'll do, and incoming Commissioner Trottenberg will be focused on. All right, I think we have done a lot on this topic. Let's see if there's anything else on other topics. Yes, sir.
I wonder if you might comment on how you feel about national media and others, international in some cases, describing you as sort of the new standard bearer of what some call the new left. Are you comfortable with that? Do you think that's a good characterization?
My wife constantly talks about the problems of labels in our society, and I agree with her. I don't want to get into an extended dialogue. I'm not talking about you, but in terms of the public discussion about how is best to label someone. I'd like to be known by my actions. So my focus is on work like this. Look, I say very clearly this is a progressive agenda. And I think it's a very bold agenda in this area and many others. But rather than label it, let's put it into effect and then let people judge for themselves. Yes?
The September 11th Memorial Museum has indicated they're going to be asking you to perhaps help subsidize its $60 million annual budget, which your predecessor did not want the city to be involved in that. Is this a decision that you will review? Could you reverse? What sort of dialogue would you be having?
Look, the memorial is extraordinarily important to all of us, very humanly. I think everyone I'm talking to here can think of someone in their lives who was directly affected by that day, and certainly that was true for me and my family, and so it's very personally important to all of us, and we want to make sure it's properly supported. That being said, I honestly believe, and I think Mayor Bloomberg was right about this, that the federal government needs to play a role here. This is a nationally important site. It's something that people come to from all over the country, all over the world, and we need the federal government to join with us. I want to just say that broad statement. We're committed to the memorial, but I think we've got to have a serious conversation with the federal government about where we go from here. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, the city's law
You're right. You were right.
Law Department announced this morning the settlement of an outstanding lawsuit related to the Republican National Convention. Some 1,800 people are challenging the constitutionality of the police department's conduct. I was wondering if you and Commissioner Bratton could comment on the settlement.
I will comment first. Could you hear? It's about the Republican Convention 04 and the settlement.
Yeah, but I will comment.
All right. That is a man of discretion. I will simply say I'm glad the case is settled. I have spoken before about my concerns about how that situation was handled at the time, and I'm glad we're moving forward. And we're going to take a very different view going forward about how we respect people's rights to express themselves. Yes?
You were a public advocate. You gave the NYPD an F with respect to freedom of information law requests. I was wondering what your administration is doing and what the NYPD is doing to make the legal bureau more open to information requests.
Well, we're just starting, but I have to tell you, it's been a very special pleasure in my life to start working with Commissioner Bratton. And if you've ever wanted to meet someone who has a clear philosophy about everything he's doing, this is the guy. And he truly believes in working with the people in all we do. He believes in collaboration and partnership. He believes in transparency. So we're going to look at everything that's done in terms of public information in all agencies and try to improve it. I will hasten to add, and Commissioner, I think you'll agree with me on this, there are some areas of the work that the NYPD does where there's very serious confidentiality issues. There's obviously national security issues, and those areas we're going to handle very, very carefully. But there are other areas where we can do a much better job of transparency, and we intend to do that. Grace? Wait, Grace, then you, Beth. Grace.
I have a question for the police commissioner just about security measures that the city's taking for the Super Bowl. Any updates on security for the Super Bowl?
As we get closer to the event, that we'll be providing certainly a lot more guidance to you and the media to help us to guide the public as to how to best enjoy that event, where so much of it is here in the city of New York. That we had a full briefing yesterday on it. We're going to be doing a number of table talk exercises in our various commands around the city to ensure that every entity in the department that's involved with that is up to speed, and those tabletop exercises won't just involve the department, but all the related city, state, and national agencies that are involved in securing that event. I'm very comfortable on everything I've been briefed on, that we are in fact going to have a safe and secure event, not only here but certainly at the game itself. The only thing up in the air right now is the weather. We'll just have to wait and see what's going to happen with that.
I want to do two because I want to, Beth and Raphael, but I just want to say I think Commissioner Bratton and his team are doing an extraordinary job preparing us for all the activities related to the Super Bowl. I think Commissioner Kelly and his team before did as well. It's going to be, I said the other day, a real blessing for this city. And I think the work that the NYPD has done and other agencies have done to prepare for this has been exemplary. Beth?
Mayor, I was wondering if you will allow charter schools to accept pre-K classes as has been proposed by the Cuomo administration.
We're certainly going to look at that proposal. I haven't seen the report that came out from the commission, but we're going to look at that and see how that might fit with our plan. Raphael.
To the commissioner.
This is his first chance at me in 20 years.
I'll protect you.
No, we actually got along pretty well.
Commissioner, when you were in Los Angeles, you worked with the community there dealing with the question that we are facing here in New York, the Latino and the Afro-American community in stop and frisk. How are you going to change that here?
Well, I think it's quite clear that there's a lot that's going to change. Certainly the amount of it has changed dramatically. It is down dramatically. The mayor campaigned on this issue. And we are in the process of awaiting the naming of a new inspector general, resolution of the monitor issue, discussions around the impact of the racial profiling legislation. So in every instance, our intent is to the best of our ability to ensure that we're doing everything within the laws as they exist or as they're created. And I'm very comfortable that that process is moving forward very well.
How do you plan to work with the different ethnic community dealing with that issue?
Oh, that's certainly reflective of where the mayor is coming from, in a very open, transparent, collaborative manner. I think everything that he or I has said supports that, and I think even more importantly, I can speak for myself, my actions, whether in New York previously or more recently in Los Angeles, has always been about the idea of working with and for the community.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take this back and let the ones who are interested in talking to the press, we'll pull them back to you, but I don't want to hound them right away. A little bit of space for the time.